about living meditatively and what that really looks like and what that really means. I'm just kind of curious, who in here feels like that they have a meditative practice? Okay, it's a handful, all right. Because basically, I looked up the definition of meditation, and it said, action or practice of meditation. We're done, right? We need to do any more. I thought, are you kidding me? Now, if you go and look up meditation, it goes a little bit deeper into focus and mind and stuff, but I had to laugh at the first one, because truly, we as humans have probably complicated meditation to a point that's hard to define anymore. Okay? So I want to talk about a few things about meditation. And we could talk about the ups, downs, ins, outs, rights, and lefts of meditation until the cows jump over the moon. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fact that, one, there are many paths to where it is that we want to go. You do not have to meditate to get there or be there, okay? But I will tell you this much, it's proven to be a pretty effective, beneficial practice. Scientifically, it's proven, right? I mean, people, their heart conditions, blood pressure, overall health, mental and emotional is affected by that. They can actually hook up little electrodes or take scans of the brain when people are meditating, and they can see how it affects the alpha, beta, theta, and gamma, in our brains and things like that. And so it has a benefit. So I don't think you can go wrong by trying it and doing it. I think that Tesla, that's who I want. Tesla actually says that if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you'll want to start looking at it from a perspective of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that's exactly what meditation can put you into, a state of that. So, the one thing I can say about a meditative practice is it's good to have regularity, especially in the beginning, when you're trying to basically rewire yourself and reprogram yourself into finding that space and that pattern of feel good. So when you first start your meditations, the where, the when, and the how need to be a little bit consistent. Do you have to be lotusing and oming? No. Could you be meditatively drinking a cup of tea? Yeah. You could be listening to the birds and watching the birds. You can lay, you can sit, you can add some music, you can have a guided meditation, you can have silence. But in the beginning, when you're trying to teach your body to go within and connect with yourself, capital S self, to find that place, to find that space that feels good, you want some regularity to it. Okay? Find out what works for you and stick with it. Because what's really cool about this, you guys, is once you establish the connection within yourself and this space and place, guess what? You can then tap into that at other times, other places, with people to help you move through human experiences. So that's why it's important to have that practice. And personally, I feel like meditation is actually spending time with yourself, your capital S self. It's a gift that you give yourself because it pulls you into the moment. It creates that space within to have an intimate relationship with yourself. So, can we all agree we're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? Everybody on board with me? All right, good. So when I say you're a spiritual being, where is that? Is it floating around on a cloud? Is it out in outer space? Is it laying on a beach somewhere? Oh, I wish my human was with it. Where is, when I say that comment, I think we all go, yeah. But where is it? So I have a story to tell you, and this story is actually told in different ways in different cultures, but I'm going to share with you the Native American version. All gets the same point across. So So the Creator stands up and says, I want to hide something from the humans until I know they're ready for it. It's the realization that we create our own reality. The eagle says, got it, God. I can soar to the moon. Leave it there, they'll never find it. God shakes his head, or its head. Remember what Jean said last week? It. And it's funny because I got what she was saying when we've grown up with this genderism. I have to catch myself. So God says, no, they're going to have the technology to explore space someday. So the salmon suggests, oh man, the ocean is so immense, I can take it out of the ocean and hide it somewhere, surely. God shakes its head no and says, they will explore the depths of the oceans as well. The buffalo says, let me hide it in the plains, dig it down deep. God says, no, they're going to learn how to cut the skin of the earth as well. A moment of silence, and the grandmother that lives within the heart of Mother Earth has no human eyes to see, only spiritual eyes to see. It wisely says, put it inside of them. The Creator said, and it is done. So when I say, where's your spiritual being? At least a good portion of it is right here within you. The greatest connection to the divine is right here. And it's about us cultivating that relationship, nurturing that relationship, getting in touch with who we really are, what we really are. Because guys, the spiritual being is actually at a meditative state all the time. So when we tap into it, we're in tune with the meditative state, which is actually our natural birthright. This is how we're supposed to. So when we can tap into that, we're living life to a much fuller potential. And when we're operating from that, we can be a better human being. Spiritual being doesn't have fear. Spiritual being is not scared. Spiritual being doesn't worry. We as human beings are taught and told to. We're taught we're kind of like taught this illusion of how we're supposed to think, feel, and do in situations, right? And if we could shift into more of that spiritual being and move through things from more of a spiritual place, it's going to change our experience because we're going to be creating our own reality. So do you all remember when, I've shared this before, but do you all remember when I was going through a divorce? This is many years ago, 10 years in July. Who's counting? But anyway. So, I'm glad I got some chuckles on that one. I have to laugh about it too sometimes. Anyway, so I was going through my divorce, and I had this dream. And there was aspects of me, and there were 3 women, and the one was a warrior, man. I'm talking swords and spears and arrows and knives, I mean, the gear, and hyper-vigilant, and I even looked to see, what does she see? You know, and then there was another one that was laying on the ground that was very feminine and was grieving and crying. And I woke up thinking, what is this? And when I meditated about it, I understood that this was 3 aspects of me, and that I could create my own reality. So, to her dislike, I had my warrior take off all of her gear and lay it to the side. Because I did not want to fight. I did not want to attract a conflict. I wanted my divorce to be as smooth and easy as possible for my son's sake. And the grieving, yes, it was sad, but there was also an ending is a beginning. You know, so how much of what I was witnessing was how I was told that I needed to think and feel. And I was told how things needed to be. A divorce is ugly, right? And trust me, there was ugly parts to this. We were in court several times before the actual day. And when I embraced being me, I empowered myself with a freedom I never saw coming. Because I sat there as things were said that were ugly, that were untrue, and I can't even tell you how many times I was thrown under the bus or whatever, but because I was empowered as the sovereign being I am, knowing who I really am, knowing who and how I've lived my life, I was able to stay in a place of peace and just be. So my lawyer calls me the day before we were supposed to go to trial, and he says, he showed up at my office and signed all the papers. He's agreeing with everything I said. And I said, I'm on my way. He said, don't get excited, Lena. It could still be weeks on the judge's desk, procedures, policies, changes, whatever. 2 days. Came back in 2 days. I know that me operating from that place, it was my natural birthright. That was not always easy. I'm not trying to tell you and sugarcoat this, but it helped me create my own reality. It empowered me through that process. So, in Genesis 1:26-27 is where they talk about God created man in his own image. Man is in the image of God. So what are we talking about? Your nose, your toes? Your eyes, your cheeks, your chin? No. Not at all. We're talking about the divinity within. We're talking about that you are the greatest expression of God because you have the divine in you. And that is what you have the opportunity to operate from. It's real simple. We were born to love, to trust, to live a joyous life. We were taught to suffer. We were taught to have fear. And when we live according to some of the things that we were taught, we're actually a part of the problem. But when we live from who we really are, we're actually part of the solution. To do this, though, to be a part of the solution, it's important to listen to our own voice. Listen to your own soul. Not listen to the programming and the noise of the world. Instead, go within. Do your practice so you know who you are, because nobody knows the answers like you do. Nobody, and own that. You know, I think so many of us are disempowered in a way that we need to be empowered. You decide what is for you. So I used to have a lot of fun when Elijah would go to the park, because he was not like the rest. He'd get to the park and he'd start scoping, watching the kids playing. He was Tesla, right? Tesla. He was Tesla-ing the crowd. He was checking the vibe and the energy of people. He really was, because then he would very selectively choose who he was going to play with. And always chose some pretty decent people. Do we allow ourselves this, though? Do we give ourselves that privilege? It's that bowl of fruit. If you put a rotten one in there, what happens to the rest eventually? It affects it some way or another. So one day we get there, he's scoping. Finally comes over and says, come on, Mom, let's walk. And we're walking, and I'm thinking in my head, well, there's only a road over here. No, there's a river on the other side of the road. We spend hours throwing rocks and sticks into the river, talking about the moon and how it affects the tides and how it affects us, and all the way to identifying the animal tracks. That was a beautiful moment. That to me was the epitome of him following his soul and him following what was best for him. And I got to tag along. It was awesome. So, I think as we're on this journey of seeking our spirituality or finding, it's there all the time, it's the right words. I mean, to really discovering and owning and being our spirituality. You know, we sometimes, I think it's about positivity. And that everything is like peaches and cream. It's not. As much as I get sometimes teased about being a Pollyanna or Susie Sunshine, spirituality is tough. Spirituality can be an interesting road, and it's really about consciousness and awareness, not positivity. And yet, when you have consciousness and awareness, it will lead you to more positivity. And what's neat is when you truly live this consciousness and awareness, and open to seeing things and being in places, you'll get used as an instrument sometimes, okay? Surprise, surprise, another Elijah story. So we're in the bookstore, and there's the kids section where there's this train that's glued to a table and he's playing. And we're always there about hours, so he's the only one for the longest time. And he's got it all set up and he's playing. And this group comes in of 4 children and 2 women, speaking, I think, Italian, but either way I couldn't understand a word they were saying. And I didn't know what the exact dynamics were. But Elijah, being the kind soul he was, doled out the trains to everybody and kept one for himself. They start playing, but there's a little girl in the crowd that's a squeaky wheel. She's looking at Elijah, and she's looking at his train, whimpering a little bit, whining a little bit, looking at him in that train. And I'm going, and I'm watching Elijah, and I know my son. My son would give you the last bite of his favorite food. So I know something's going on. So I gotta hold space. And I gotta fight that programming of, just give it to her. Just give it to her and make her quiet down. You know? But no, I knew there was something going on. And he's just standing there, and she's getting louder. Finally, one of the women comes over, and they do their thing, and she's looking at him in the train, and I'm thinking, try to change that train. But, sorry, that was the mama in me. And, but I was just holding space. And finally, she picks the kid up, and they all leave. I just looks at me and says, she needed that, Mom. And went to playing with the trains. I'm like, alrighty then. You know, I mean, is that not, he is following his heart. He is following his soul. He is doing what his purpose is here to do. And it doesn't always look positive sometimes. It's not always peaches and cream. It isn't. So it's about, sometimes you don't know, I mean, I didn't know what was going on. I knew there was something, but I didn't know what it was. But I just held space. Do the same thing for yourself. Hold space for yourself. Be there for yourself. Know that when we're going through things, there's a reason we're going through it. Follow your heart and allow other people to follow theirs, and don't let them take away your autonomy and sovereignty. I was actually reading something the other day, and it really just kind of clicked in that there's a lot of movies out there that talk about time travel. And what are they always concerned about time travel? That somebody's going to go back in time and do what? Change it. They're going to do some little or big thing, and it's going to affect the now, right? And everybody's always so worried about it. Well, why aren't we wondering what we could be doing right here, right now, little or small, to change the future in a good way, small or big? I thought that was such an awesome concept that I'm still kind of wrapping my head around, really, and digesting it and soaking it up, because how do I know that all these things don't make a difference, okay? One more story and then we'll close it up. You guys remember when I came out of the grocery store and I saw the woman that was going 90 to nothing, putting her groceries in the back of the car, and you could tell she wasn't in the moment? And I get up to her, and out of my mouth pops, "That's a really lovely skirt." And she stopped, and I watched her come into herself. And her shoulders relaxed, her face relaxed. She smiled, and her hand fluttered to her thigh. And she said, "You know, this is actually one of my favorites." And I said, "I can see why. This is very flattering." And I went on my way. She gets in her car and she leaves. I'm thrilled, I'm excited, just because I touched somebody's life in some little tiny way. And she smiled. I'm later talking to one of our congregants that is very intuitive, and she says, "No, Lena, the pebble you dropped had a pretty big weight. What you did was help her get in the moment to where something she encountered a little further down the road, she was in the moment and in the present to deal with it in a completely different way." It still to this day gives me goosebumps. Because my son laughs at me because stuff just flies out my mouth in the grocery store. Stuff just flies out my mouth as we walk around. And now I trust it. Use me as an instrument to touch people. It's okay. It's okay. Every once in a while that I go, "God, I set it up." Really, did I have to? But I guess so. Okay. And have some fun with it, seriously. So, in closing, I want us to hit on a couple good points. In Psalms 46:10, it's the one that says, "Be still and know that I am God." I even think Jean said this last week, and I laughed because I had already had this talk, and I'm like, repetition's good. Because really, it is about getting us into that place that we're letting go of the busy distractions and illusions of the human existence and truly connecting with who we really are as a spiritual being and living from that place. It's Thich Nhat Hanh that says, "People say walking on water is a miracle. But to me, walking peacefully on earth is the real miracle."